Hello and welcome again to King of Games Mobile. I'm talking to you today about the new Primal Burst box. Now, this is actually going to be a multi-part video because there's so much to go over. The first question, should I buy it? The answer is the box kind of sucks, but you have to buy it. Now, you might be asking, why would I want to buy a box that sucks? Well, the reason is because while the box itself isn't earth-shattering, there are so many new archetypes being introduced that you have to buy it for the future. Now, the first one I'm going to cover is the Lightsworn archetype. For those of you who don't know, the Lightsworn were an archetype that were released 3-4 years ago, and they were relevant for a long time in the TCG. So let me just start by showing you some of the cards that will probably be coming in the future and that you should fear. Rather than going for the clickbait and bringing the most powerful monsters last, I'm going to start off with one of the things that you might have to look forward to. Now, it looks like it would be hard to summon because you have to have 4 or more different named Lightsworn monsters in your graveyard. But because of the excessive milling that Lightsworn does, it's really not a problem. And in fact, you might start seeing 40-card decks in Duel Links, which has been pretty much unheard of in PvP so far. In fact, with the right opening hand, you could summon this your first or second turn. If you look at the effects, it has the ability to banish everything on your opponent's field. Now, in the TCG, this costs 3,000 life points. They may adjust this or they may leave it as it is, but that kind of board wipe can be pretty devastating for most decks. The next card that might be released is Raiden. Now, his effects don't seem that crazy at first. However, he does let you mill a total of 4 cards in your turn, 2 during the main phase and 2 during the end phase, which, if you're lucky, means a Judgment Dragon next turn. He also can get himself up to 400 attack from that main phase mill, which means you can drop a 4-star 2100 beater on your first turn. In addition, he has the 1700 base attack, so even if you don't get the lucky mills, you still have a monster that doesn't have a lot of the downsides of the other Lightsworn monsters, which are low attack. So Raiden will be a pretty solid card to include in your deck if and when he's released. The next card, Rota, is not Lightsworn specific. However, Lightsworns are mostly warriors, and so this card really does apply to them. You may not know this, but in the TCG, which is the trading card game, the real-life Yu-Gi-Oh game in the United States, this card is actually limited to 1 at the time of this video is being made. The reason is because the ability to basically choose any warrior monster you want, in this case a Lightsworn, probably Raiden if he's released, gives you an incredible versatility, and that search really gives you an advantage over some of the slower decks that have come out so far. Now, because this card is already limited in the TCG, I would say it's a little bit less likely that it actually is ever released in Duel Links, but if it does, not only will it help Lightsworns, but it'll also help ninjas, Joeys, different warrior decks, etc. So be on the lookout for it. The final Lightsworn monster I'm going to talk about in this video is Minerva. Now, as you can tell, I lied about the clickbait thing. Judgment Dragon is good, but Minerva is the crown jewel for all Lightsworn players. Let's just look at her effects real quick. You can detach 1 material from this card, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, then draw cards equal to the number of Lightsworn cards sent to the graveyard by this effect. So that can be a draw 3 right there. If this card is destroyed by a battle, or if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, then you can destroy cards on the field up to the number of Lightsworn cards sent to the graveyard by this effect. So that can be 3 destroyed cards on your opponent's side. You can only use each effect of Minerva, the Exalted Lightsworn, once per turn. Thank God, because it could be even worse. Now, in case you're wondering why this card is black, it's what's called an XYZ card. Now, if you look at the first thing, it says 2 level 4 monsters. So what that means is that you'll need to have 2 level 4 monsters on your board, and you'll need to basically tribute them to summon Minerva. So it's kind of like a tribute summon, except that it's more specific. You can't just tribute any 2 monsters. They have to be 2 level 4 monsters. Now, in some archetypes, there are even more specific requirements, like 2 level 4 Lightsworn monsters or 2 level 4 Gem Knight monsters or something like that. So just as an aside, monsters that take 2 level 4, 2 level 3, 2 level 2s, or anything like that without declaring a specific type or attribute or archetype are generally called generic XZ monsters. That's just something for you to know in case you hear it mentioned in other videos or see it on a blog somewhere. Another fun fact, this card was once a prize card, meaning that only people who had won certain Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments had access to it. If you wanted to play Lightsworn at their absolute best, you were going to drop $800 for one copy of this card if you were lucky. Prices went beyond that up into over $1,000 at one point. Now that's the actual Lightsworn card that I wanted to talk about. But for the bonus round, there's one more card that you should be ready for. It is called Framelord freaking Omega. That's right, you might be able to tell. I kind of hate this card. In fact, if it didn't cost so much, I'd burn it. Or, run it. But anyway, let's look at the effect. Once per turn during the main phase, you can banish both this face-up card from the field and one random card from your opponent's hand face-up until your next standby phase. Once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, you can target one banished card, return it to the graveyard. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one other card in the graveyard, shuffle both that card and this card from the graveyard into the deck. That's right, if you're running more than one copy of this and you manage to get it out, you start stealing cards from your opponent's hand. If you can get this out on the first turn, which is possible, depending on how many you're able to produce, you can actually take 3 cards away from your opponent, which means they have a starting hand of 1 or 2 cards. So, yay for that. This will be even worse in Duel Links because we have the slightly smaller starting hands. Another thing this can do is help you recover resources that you banished. Let's say you somehow run this in an XYZ deck, the machine deck. You could recover the X, Y, and Zs so that you have more material to make the various machine monsters. You can also use it with psychic monsters. If you had to banish something for cost there, you can just bring your cards back with Omega. So it really takes away the banishing mechanic. And let's say you use Cosmic Cyclone to banish a spell card that was just ridiculous. Well, Framelord Omega can get it right back in the graveyard. So as we go forward and more cards are released that interact with the banish zone, Framelord just makes the consequences of those much less impactful. Because of all the things this card can do, as I said before, I kind of hate it. Now, this monster is what's called a synchro monster. It's a little bit more challenging to summon. You have to have both a tuner and a non-tuner monster. Now, there are no tuner monsters yet, I don't think, in Duel Links, so you won't know what that is. But just know that you have to have it, and that the stars of both the cards combined have to match up with whatever synchro monster you are trying to summon. So synchros are harder in a lot of cases to summon than XYZ monster. Now, I realize that it might seem kind of dumb to be talking about Framelord Omega and Minerva when neither of those mechanics are even in the game yet, but according to some data miners, the data for synchros and XYZs has been found in the source code, which means that we're going to see it eventually. So you might want to do a little bit more research on how both of those mechanics work. And if they come in and I get some requests, I can make a video going into more detail about how to use them. But for now, I don't want to make this video ridiculously long. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video here. Please watch my channel for videos on some of the other archetypes that are released. Gem Knights, which have their own power creep, and also Volcanics, which never really did anything in TCG, but I'll probably cover it anyway just for those of you who are interested. But for now, this is King of Games Mobile, signing out. Please like, subscribe, or comment to let me know if you like these videos and also what you might like to see done better.